Welcome to the Prospect Heights Fire District. I'm Fire Chief Drew Smith. I'm here to present you some general information on our need for a bond referendum for fire apparatus and firehouse improvements. Our mission here at the Prospect Heights Fire District is delivering exceptional services to everyone with courtesy, respect, and empathy. This is our mission. We're here to serve. Our members do this by living out their values of fellowship, empowerment, respect, and empowerment. This is what we do. We care about you, and caring takes resources. Back at the start of the pandemic, we began a comprehensive planning process. That process involved hundreds of hours of research, poring over statistics, documents, so forth, and we came up with a comprehensive plan that the Board of Trustees adopted in the fall of 2022. And part of those needs require money, and that's why we're here tonight. So on April 4th, on the ballot, there will be a question asking the voters if they would approve $10 million in revenue bonds. Revenue bonds are paid for by tax proceeds, and those bond proceeds are paid off by you, the taxpayer. We're asking for your support. We haven't done this a lot. In 1971, we had a bond referendum to build an addition onto the original volunteer firehouse, and we had a second bond referendum in 1991 to build some living quarters for our then part-time workforce. We also have had some referendums, but they weren't bonds, to create a paramedic ambulance and to add some full-time personnel. We only get two sources of income: the property taxes that you pay and the money that we generate through ambulance billing. There's a few other odds and ends that generate us revenue, but those sources are less than 1% of our total budget. 85% of our budget goes to personnel. There's no way getting around that. We're actually in line with all other fire departments on the amount of money we spend on personnel, but we don't have any ways to capture sales tax, income tax, any other taxes that other governmental units receive. And we don't have the luxury of trimming our hours or answering fewer calls. We have to go when you call. All of this is limited by the cost of living. And I know that you think the cost of living is high. I appreciate the pain that it causes you. But for us as the fire district, over the last 20 years, the cost of living has only averaged 2.05%. 2% has been the general increase year to year in the Prospect Heights Fire District budget. And this is hardly enough money to maintain a capital reserve. In tax year 2029, property values in Prospect Heights totaled almost $530 million. And by the middle of 2015, following the recession, those values had fallen to $330 million. That was a 40% decrease in property value. That dramatically affects our ability to generate tax revenue, to pay for improvements, and deliver services. In 2020, that number had risen up to $453 million, but still far from 529. And then following the pandemic in 2021, it had fallen by almost $40 million again. And this was due to a variety of factors that are beyond the control of the fire district. All of this places the burden on the taxpayer, not through higher taxes, but on fewer value to pay those taxes. Since 2000, we've had this comprehensive capital replacement plan for our fleet of vehicles. We know what we need to do, we know when we need to do it, and we know how much it costs. But since that 2008-2009 recession, we have been unable to save money for capital replacement. We've spent the money that we had saved between 2000 and 2009 to do some of this, but here we find ourselves 10 years or more after the recession. We still are unable to generate the revenues that we need, and we have a lot of needs, millions of dollars of needs. The goal here of this referendum is to maintain, not expand. We don't propose to build a bigger, newer firehouse. We don't propose to add more trucks to the fleet. We propose to maintain the services that we deliver to you and that you've come to expect from us, and that costs money. Our aerial ladder truck is 30 years old. It was paid for by that 1991 referendum. We had saved money started to save money to replace it, and then the recession hit, and we haven't been able to do that since. Right now, we are unable to utilize this truck in a primary response capacity because it doesn't carry enough water, it can't carry paramedic equipment, and it can't carry equipment to rescue people from car accidents. It's a big truck, it costs a lot of money, but it has a very limited function. And our proposal for replacement is to make it a multi-use truck so we get more bang for the buck and we get another truck that'll last 20 or more years. We also need to combine our tanker with a pumper. Right now we have separate tanker and a separate pumper, and that means we need 2 crews. And 2 crews doesn't work for us anymore. We don't have the people. The ever-increasing number of ambulance calls makes it more and more unlikely that our ambulance crews available to bring the big bucket of water to houses that are burning in Prospect Heights. And we are a good fire department, but we are nothing without sufficient water. And so our strategy is to combine these 2 vehicles into 1 vehicle, similar to the one you see on the right here, that'll allow us to have the water with us all the time and not rely on the ambulance crew to bring the water. The firehouse itself was built by the volunteers in 1948. It was done through donations and sweat equity of the firefighters at the time. And in 1971, an addition was built to increase the storage capacity for vehicles and to provide a meeting space and some offices for the volunteer firefighters. And then in 1991, a small addition was built off the back to create a dormitory and a locker room and some other smaller spaces to accommodate the 24-hour staffing by our part-time firefighters. Here we find ourselves in the 21st century with a nearly full-time workforce and facing the ever-changing needs of workforces that demands private personal sleeping areas, private personal bathroom and locker room facilities. We are no longer prepared for what is likely to be in the future the multi-gender, diverse workforce that the world is facing, and we need to do that. And also with the pandemic, we had all 7 of our firefighters at the time sleeping in the same room with limited ventilation, and it's a miracle that we didn't have a COVID outbreak and go out of service, unable to deliver service because half the fire department was infected with COVID because they've been sleeping in there. There's no way around it. We need to make it. Little graphic, we started in 44 with the volunteer firehouse. We used that all the way up until the second referendum in 1991 when we moved into the part-time workforce, and we find ourselves since 2020 in the mostly full-time fire department era. We need accommodations that accommodate that full-time workforce. Our firefighters deserve that. In the firehouse, we are not ADA compliant. We have a lower level that is completely inaccessible. We don't have the individual sleeping in bathing rooms. We need an expanded kitchen area because the kitchen was designed for volunteer firefighters, not for 7 full-time firefighters. We need to update our heating, ventilating, air conditioning, plumbing. Some of those infrastructure is approaching 80 years old. And we need to replace our roof. We need to replace our overhead doors. All those things are old, and we need to add security. There's no security features to this building. We try to keep the doors shut, but we have no way of locking the facility down to prevent intruders, to prevent assailants from people entering that aren't supposed to enter the building. Those people, if they enter, not only are they a threat to the firefighters who are here, but they're a threat to you, the resident, because if we can't respond, you're out of luck. In comparison, our headquarters fire station is 10,000 square feet, and the average headquarters suburban fire station is 25,000 square feet. Our substation by the airport is 6,000 square feet, and the average suburban substation is 15,000 square feet. We're not planning to dramatically increase the size of these buildings. We're not proposing to tear them down and start over again. But we need to make modifications to the footprints that we have to accommodate the workforce that we have and that we'll have in the future. In the last 30 years, there have been over 233 building fires in Prospect Heights. And of those, 56 are significant. What's significant? Significant is the fire did not go out with 1 crew and 1 hose line. It required multiple crews and the assistance of other communities. And out of those 56 fires, 3 fires in multifamily housing areas displaced dozens of residents. We need to be prepared for those fires. Our fleet is coming to the end of its life, and we need to reboot. We've tried to save you money over the last 20 years. We've received over $2 million in grants. We've saved over $20 million in payroll by utilizing part-time firefighters. And since 2013, we've cut $700,000 annually in personnel costs by reducing the amount of administrative staff. How busy are we? Just look at the numbers. 30 years ago, 1992, 503 calls. 2022, last year, 2,722 calls. That's a 500% increase in the workload of the fire district in the last 30 years. It's necessitated that we add full-time personnel. It's necessitated that we replace aging equipment. This graphic, I hope, sums it up for you. The red line is the calls. From 2012 until 2022, the calls just keep going up. The money stays relatively flat in the green line, and our personnel staffing has dropped because we've had to convert from part-time personnel who make a fraction of the wage of full-time personnel. The fire service labor market right now in the United States is extremely tight. There's a small number of qualified people applying for jobs that 20 years ago there were dozens, if not hundreds of people would stand in line to get the chance to be a firefighter. There may be 500 applicants for 3 jobs. Now we're lucky if we get 5 applicants. In the end, we do more with less every day. The money doesn't need to go up. The rigs get older and less reliable. Our firefighters go on more calls. We are doing more with less. There's no way to squeeze any more blood out of this. It is what it is. We've gotten everything out of what we are doing that we can do. And the only way to move forward is through the support of the taxpayer. What's it going to cost you? Our consultant has told us that on a $300,000 home, which is the average home price in Prospect Heights, I know for some people that's hard to believe, but when you add up all of the stuff in Prospect Heights, that's the average. It's $135 a year. If you want to know what it costs, get your tax bill out, find the line that says Prospect Heights, slide over to how much you're paying, and multiply it by 15%, 0.15, and that's what we're asking for you. That'll be your number. Thank you for listening. We ask for your support. Please tell us if we're barking up the right tree. And if there are any questions, just call the fire station, ask for the fire chief, and I'll be more than happy to speak with you. And if I'm not here, I'll call you back as soon as I can and we can talk. Or stop by and knock on the door. I'd be happy to talk with you also. Thank you.